Joe, thank you for getting to finally talk to you because I realized, following you on Facebook and especially this last year, that I've actually seen some of your work over the course of a number of years that I've been covering indie films. And so I appreciate you taking time to talk about your work, especially as special effects and in the indie scene. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor, and I hope some of the work you saw was entertaining at least.
I I could I'll be honest, just be full transparency. Some of the earlier work, maybe not quite so much, but your latest stuff really has hit well with me, quite a bit. And for my listeners, we've got Joe Castro here. He is a man of many talents, but the main talent that I've seen of his lately has been special effects. You did It's a Wrap, which I just recently reviewed, Scalper, Pig Killer. Loved your work in all of those, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so what made you want to get into doing special effects?
Oh, that's a great question. What made me want to get into special effects? Well, when I was 7 years old, my father knew that I was very interested in like dragons and dinosaurs, like all
Sure.
young guys are, right? And so one weekend he was babysitting me while my mother was away on a trip with her work friends, and he said, "Son, watch this. You're gonna like it." And it was the first time I had ever really like been sat down and allowed to watch a movie all by myself.
Sure, sure.
I'm seven. This is like 1977.
Yeah.
I'm 7 years old, and it was Godzilla versus the Smog Monster.
Oh,
And, yeah, and and so like as a 7 year old watching these two monsters fight it out, and just that movie had everything in it. It had practical effects. It had rotoscoping. It had makeup effects in it as well. There's
hmm.
scenes where like the smog monster puts like this toxic fumes, and
Yeah.
people it burns their skin off, and then their bodies are like skeletons on the ground. So it had everything in it. And I said to my father when it was over, I said, "Dad, how do they do that?" And he sat with me and we watched the credits roll, and he was like, "Look, son, there, look, see where it says special effects? That's how they do it. They use special effects." I said, "Dad, that's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to make special effects for movies." And yeah, I never looked back. That's how it all began. Yeah.
That is awesome that it was Godzilla that inspired you. I'm a big kaiju fan myself. I liked the new stuff. I liked the old stuff.
Mhm.
Some of the stuff I'm like, Kazuki, Baby Godzilla, I could maybe do without,
Yeah,
but
Godzuki, yeah, Godzuki, yeah,
Godzuki, yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Especially how they made Godzuki like super cute and cuddly, like in like the 90s.
yeah.
And how
Uh,
they like, yeah, he's like a little cartoon character kind of thing. And if I don't know if you noticed, but like Godzuki is like he kind of looks like a kitty cat in the
yeah,
face.
yeah.
Like a cat-like features, and then like Godzilla now has more of like a pit bull, kind of like a what is it, an Italian bull
Yeah.
mastiff, got like a face. So, yeah, to like a cat and a dog, things that kids love, right? Pets, dogs, cats. They're
Dogs,
super
cats.
yeah, they're super smart about all that stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, and then I just saw the trailer for recently for Godzilla X Kong, and we've got it looks like a young Kong in there, and I'm like, oh, they're doing an equivalent of a Godzuki. We literally have Son of Kong in here, it looks like.
Yeah.
But that's all CGI, not practical. Which I've always been, I mean, because growing up in the 80s, I was the first movie I saw 2.5 years old was Star Wars in the theater when I was two. That was my first movie. But growing up in the 80s, the practical effects, always just in awe of that artistry,
Right.
and to see it still survive today in the world of CGI and tech, thanks to folks like you, just it warms my heart, even as I'm watching hearts get ripped out of body.
Well, yeah, I mean, like practical effects are always going to be special because they're handmade, they're handcrafted.
Mhm.
When it's like watching like a Jim Henson film from like the 80s or 90s. All that stuff is these are handcrafted films. They're
Mhm.
made by human hands, and I think they really matter. They really there's something authentic and super gratifying when you're watching something that's made by hand. Yeah.
Well, and they age better too. We've always, I've had long discussions with my friends about like Jurassic Park and how, there's limited CGI, but almost all of that's practical, and it ages so much better than say Jurassic Park 3 or, Jurassic World. You just look at those and you're like, yeah, they use some practical but more CGI, but that original one just it ages so well, you know and that's why I wanted to talk to you because the work that goes into that, I mean, those are big budget films, but you're doing it for indie stuff now. How did you land your first film? Did you join a
That's
company at first, or
That's a good question. Well, my first actual screen credit was on a movie titled Steel and Lace.
Hmm.
And yeah, it was a small independent special effects company. And I don't even think I think they paid me like $150 to work around the shop, for the
Sure,
day or whatever.
sure.
And I got to go on set maybe one day, just kind of see what was going on.
Hmm.
But then Brink Stevens and Fred Olin Ray were making movies. This was the early 90s, and my name was put
Sure.
in the hat to work on this movie called Evil Tunes.
Oh yeah.
And
Hmm.
that was my first kind of like lead key credit. And I made like this animatronic Necronomicon, so that the Book of the Dead and the face kind of talks and the eyes blink. And I got to do some fangs and a little bit of gore on set. I got to work with Dick Miller before he passed away,
Oh
and
yeah.
David
Mhm.
Carradine and Artie Johnson from. You ever see that movie, Love at First Bite?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Artie
I know.
Johnson was
Yeah.
in it, and David Carradine was one of my father's favorite villains in this movie with Chuck Norris called what was it called? Jesus, I forgot now. Lone Wolf McQuade.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah,
yeah, I know Lone Wolf McQuade. Yeah.
that Lone McQuade is one of my father's favorite movie. That and John Carpenter's remake of The Thing. But so when I was like, this is like 1990,
Hmm.
and I just come out to Hollywood and got to send a picture home to my dad of me and David Carradine on set, and that was it. And my
Yeah.
dad was like, "Okay, he's done. That's it." There's different levels of made it. Not really
Hmm.
different levels, but to different people, it means different things. I have friends back at home, and they're like, why don't you work on a Marvel film? And I'm like, I don't. I mean, I guess I wouldn't mind working on one, but then there's going to be like 30 other people there, and they're all working on the same helmet or the
Right.
same cut that goes on someone's face or whatever it is. And that's great. So when I get to work on like independent movies like I work on today, I'm like I get to be a true artist. I get to
Sure.
design things and create them. And when I post a picture of my work online, I made it. No one else made that thing. There's not even really anybody putting their hands on it. Every once in a while, I'll hire an assistant or someone to come in and
Hmm.
do some key other little specific work, but ultimately it's my work. And when you're working on a big studio film, it's like kind of like working at Kmart. You're part of the Kmart team.
You're
So
part of the
wow.
machine, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was wondering that because, especially with post-production and that, there's usually longer bouts or pre-production with the bigger budgeted films, but indie films, not quite so much. Do you get a long amount of time for most films to where you can prepare your art, or do you kind of have to pull all-nighters to get those artificial heads and limbs
Y-
going?
I've been doing this for 42 years, and
Sure.
a lot of people don't realize that I have like a huge body of work.
Hmm.
And when people come to me and ask me to work on their films, they're coming to ask me because there's something specific they know that I can do really well.
Sure.
And when I'm approached, they ask me how long are you going to need, Joe, and I tell them the sooner we start to work, the more time I have to really relish in the project and do my best. And so I normally ask for a specific amount of time, and they give it to me. Normally they give it to me. So but yeah, I mean, it's not like a studio film where they have to develop or prototype
Sure.
something far in advance in order for it to actually work for whatever company men that have to approve of it or this sort of thing. Yeah.
Now, you got to work on with Herschel Gordon Lewis, Blood Feast 2. How was it working on that? Because I remember watching that going, I dig it. I dig it quite a bit. I'm a big fan of the of his work. Especially the Blood trilogy and that. So, how was that working with someone who is the Godfather of Gore?
Yeah, working with Herschel was one of those quintessential moments in my career that changed, that really shaped and changed my career. First of all, when I met Herschel for the first time, I kind of had forgotten how much he had influenced like everyone,
Yeah. Mhm.
most people don't realize when you ask people what's the can you tell me what the very first slasher movie was ever made, and most people don't realize it was Blood Feast. It's a
Mhm.
1963 movie that Herschel direct. He wrote it,
Love
he
Blood
starred in it.
Feast.
Yeah,
Hmm.
he wrote the music for it, he created all the
Hmm.
special effects for it, he edited it, and he shot it, and so working with Herschel was like I said, one of these like bucket list amazing moments, and then being able to create the special effects for the sequel of that 1963 film was also a
Hmm.
big humbling and experience I'm truly grateful for. And I became really close friends with Herschel. Herschel starred in one of my films. And I just I can't say enough nice things about Herschel. Yeah, yeah.
When you're working with someone like that, I mean, it's a sequel to his film, and you're getting to work on a lot of the practical effects, which all looked great. I love the face tearing off. I love that bit, that the cutting of the liver out. I mean, everything just looked wonderfully visceral and just fit with the original. But it's his baby kind of speak. Did you have some play in the design, or did he give a lot of input going, no, no, I don't want it like that. I want it different. Joe, here, just let me do it. No.
Well, to be honest with you, working with Herschel was like, it was kind of like whenever we were doing the special effects on set, the
Mhm.
entire set was completely quiet, and it was just Herschel and I. It was like
Yeah.
literally no one spoke because no one knew what we were trying to accomplish. In fact, when you watch Blood Feast 2,
Mhm.
every time someone dies, that's me in the costume killing the people
Oh, is
because
that really?
yeah, it's me in the costume because I understood Herschel's mind so well
Sure.
that only I could like operate the special effects on
Mhm.
camera and get the angle and the shot that he wanted. Doing special effects on camera is a very technical thing.
Mhm.
It's not there's nothing really creative about it. It's all science. Like you have to hold the weapon a certain way so you can see the gleam of the blade as the blood shoots, out of
Mhm.
the prop head or this sort of thing. And when you hand like a weapon like that to an actor, they're more up in their mind trying to create this character. They're not
Right.
really thinking about the all the technical aspects of it. So it was only natural that I climbed into the costume. And so those are my hands, and that's me. They're doing the killing when you see it. And so and he would say action, and then he would just talk me through the whole thing, and
Mhm.
I understood exactly what he wanted and what he needed. And it was kind of like one of those experiences where like, wow, this is the way it's really supposed to be. I could really hear his direction and execute it perfectly. So
Mhm.
I think that's why we got along so well.
Well, and I think that's why the effects work so well in it. I love the meat grinder scene.
Oh
Sticking the arm in the meat grinder is wonderful. I know that sounds weird, folks. I know, but we're talking practical gore effects here. It looked like she had her arm right in that, the meat grinder. So I thought that was very effective.
yeah, Herschel still knew, all the way to up to the very end. He really knows how to make his gore even gorier than everyone else's.
He
Yeah.
does, and I've got Gore Girls on Blu-ray, which if you ever want to see something in crisp HD, see things get cut off and blood in that, and you look at it, and yeah, the colors might be a little off or whatnot, but it's very impressive I always am impressed with practical effects, how you make it look like limbs are being cut off. I think one of the most effective arm cutoffs was done in 2000 Maniacs. Is the arm getting cut off when they cut the girl's arm off? You watch that, you're like,
I
oh,
I
yeah.
have to give that one a review. My favorite Herschel film is a movie titled Wizard of Gore.
Oh, I
And
love
there's
Wizard of
yeah,
Gore.
and
Yes.
there's a scene where he's twisting this contraption on this girl's head, and
Yes.
it's just so maniacal, you know. Some of the simplest things were done so well. He did them so well, and he would just use like a mannequin from like a department store window, and he would somehow manage to like doll the actress up so
Mhm.
she looked like the mannequin, and the mannequin looked like her with a wig and this kind of thing, and it just worked perfectly. Yeah, yeah, he knew what he was doing. He really did.
He does. And you know what you've been doing. I mean, you've been doing it for, quite some time, and it shows, especially because I think a good special effects, especially when you're talking gore movies like what you've worked on recently, that I've seen. I gotta see the Once and Future Smash. I keep seeing scenes and
Yeah.
pictures of that, and that just
Well,
looks crazy.
Well, the Once and Future Smash is a basically a mockumentary, a fake documentary
Sure.
about the making of a movie that was lost in the 1970s titled End Zone 2. And
Mm.
it really the really the one thing I contributed to the film was the mask that you see
Ah.
on the movie poster,
Mhm.
which is of the slasher villain character Smash Mouth. And it's about a young man who was tortured by a football team he was on in high school, and they broke his jaw and disfigured him. And so now in the film, he comes back to get revenge on I don't know if it's the children or the actual cheerleaders in the
Sure.
football team that's still alive, you know.
Mhm.
But anyhow, the that was my contribution to that film.
Mm.
As far as gore and this kind of stuff of upcoming projects, I am the key special effects artist on a movie titled Mutilator 2, which is a big, huge cult film from the early
Mhm.
1980s. And I wish I could talk more about the details of it
Oh no, that's
because
okay. I
some of my
understand.
big stuff, but movie
Sure.
hasn't come out yet.
Sure.
And but there is a lot of really cool deaths in that film. I hope they all make it onto the screen. I mean, there
Mhm.
was some of my best work ever in that film. So hopefully they leave in they do like a extended director's cut of the gore or something of this sort. There was a whole bunch. We spent 17 days just shooting deaths for the film. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah, I saw that, and I'm looking forward to that. But you did the special effects makeup on Scalper, which I recently reviewed, and I actually got a chance to talk to Chad Farron, who you also worked with Pig Killer on. And both those films, I really loved the the practical effects in them, especially Pig Killer. Uh that pig mask, yeah, and Ba Ling's death as well. You were involved in all of that, weren't you?
Yes, no, I'm the key special effects
Yeah.
artist for both of those films, and
Mhm.
you know, Chad's a great director to work with because he grew up appreciating all those movies from the '80s, so he
Sure.
understands how to photograph a practical effect. I mean, I'm just be straight up honest with you. The young directors today that are making films have
Mhm.
no idea how to shoot practical effects. They think they do.
They think they do.
They
Sure.
think they do, of
Uh-huh.
like all major narcissistic sociopaths do. They think they understand how to photograph a practical effect, but most of them do not. They don't
Mhm.
understand the magic from the 80s and the magic of shooting when a special effects when an artist paints a picture, when an artist like makes a sculpture, there's always one angle of it that's the most amazing angle.
Mhm.
And that's the angle that they post online. That's the
Mhm.
picture they post of their work. And if you're a director and you're not getting that angle, then you're missing out. See,
Mhm.
so a lot of directors think, "Oh, I know better. I know better. Or let me operate the blood. I can do better than
Sure.
you.
Sure. Sure.
You know, let me do this." And they have no idea what they're doing. You know,
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've given a director a Bentley and they've just driven it right off a cliff. You know, because they don't
Yeah.
know what they're doing. You know, and
Sure.
this interview might make some filmmakers mad, but it's absolutely 100% true.
Mhm.
Some of my best work ever will never be seen for two reasons. One, the director had no idea what they were doing, or
Mhm.
two, it was so good that the director did not even want to show it in his film because he was jealous that it would upstage his bad direction.
That's that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm being
Uh,
straight up honest with
oh,
you. I can't
sure.
tell you how many directors
Mhm.
have intentionally
Mhm.
photographed my stuff in front of the producers and stuff, and use low light or a bad
Mhm.
angle or something just to make sure I don't want this work to be seen, because if not, this is what they'll remember in the film. I don't want everybody just to remember the special effects because I have no idea what I'm doing with the direction. you know, and but it happens all the time. It happens all the time. Yeah.
And luckily, like you said, Chad does know because
Chad,
Pig Killer I thought looked fantastic. The body of Howling. I know that sounds weird, but the body,
yeah.
all the effects you did there, and especially that pig mask, uh, it looked real. I almost was like, did they actually cut the head off a pig and carve it out?
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you thought it looked real. But I just want to let everybody know I never used like real animal parts
Sure.
in our films. Now, back in the day, this is something, we had over time we've all learned and we've learned from our past, but you know, some of the most amazing effects artists from our past, they used to use real animal parts for
Mhm.
stuff, but we don't do that anymore. It's just not kosher to do that. It's not PC to do that. It's not appropriate. We have the technology to make guts and animal brains and, CGI in bugs and stuff
Mhm.
like this. Back in the day, they'd have no problem killing a bug on camera, but it's not really entertainment if you're just
Right.
taking the life of something for your own entertainment. And so we don't do that anymore. But I did try very hard to make sure that the pig mask looked like an actual mask from the butcher shop. And that was one of my goals. So thanks for that
Yeah.
shout out, for those kind words. I appreciate that.
I,
And then, all like, I remember like shooting Bai Ling. Bai
mhm.
Ling is, she's a character all on
Oh
herself.
yeah.
And she, it was hard to get her to do something like that scene, which was to be cut up naked,
Right.
basically. And, but she trusted me and allowed me to do the scene with her and,
Mhm.
mold her and pour blood on her and all this stuff. So I'm very appreciative of that. And then in Scalper, I had to do a scene where we removed her face.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yep.
but Bilene, she's very protective of her
Image. Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
Yeah, her image in her face. So having to do a scene where we remove her face was very challenging for her
Mhm.
to get into groove with. I was able to convince her to do it, and I think the results were amazing. But it did come with some challenges of my own, getting her to do it. Yeah.
I was going to ask for what challenges you run into sometimes with some of those makeups because you've got to do body casts sometimes and that, and I imagine some actors are like, "Wait, you want to do what?"
But I sometimes I have to I have to be on guard about some stuff. I mean, I have a lot of like, interesting stories to tell, but also a professional in the business.
Sure,
So there's
sure.
a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but I've been straight up smacked by people when I
Wow.
put makeup on their face, and
Mhm.
I've had to be the bigger person and turn around and walk away or say, "Oh,
Sure.
I'm sorry. This is not appropriate. I'm leaving now until you're ready to be professional with me." But
Right.
actors can be like children sometimes, and and they will behave unprofessionally and inappropriately. But there's always the war of whether or not needs to be fought, with these people. And
Right.
sometimes I just have to walk away and do my best. But being a great special effects artist has a lot more than just making a great special effects. You also have to be a consoler and a counselor and a scientist and a
Mhm.
therapist when you're working with people that have stuff glued on their face, or they're put in a position where they're going to be immobile for maybe
Sure.
30 minutes or an hour or so,
Mhm.
all this stuff. And they have to trust you, and they have to be willing to go along with whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, especially if you're trying to do something that's truly original.
And when you're doing stuff like that, does it help do you explain the process completely of exactly what's going on so they know that so you just don't come up and go, "Here, I got to slap this on your face."
Right.
Uh,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You show them what you're going to be using. You explain
Mhm.
to them that you've done it before. I would never do something to somebody that I haven't done to myself before. In
Sure.
fact,
Mhm.
I've tried all these things, and also whenever I use special effects materials, I use the highest grade materials there are. Like
Sure.
for instance, right here, there's this little bottle of prosthetic glue. This is the most expensive brand of glue on the market
Oh
for
wow.
your face. This
Mhm.
bottle is $140. And so I don't even take the whole thing out. I open it
Sure.
up, I put a little bit in another bottle, and I keep this here,
Sure.
and so
Sure.
but there's definitely a science and a sort of a kind of like a theology behind it where you can, you have to speak to these people and assure them that what you're doing, you know how to take care of their face, especially
Sure.
if you're gluing something on someone's face.
Or you're having a killer shove a knife somewhere uncomfortable on someone, like in the opening of Scalper. Okay, I'm trying not to spoil it, but I just need to know what was used for the knife scene to get the idea across of the
Yeah.
brown streak, because that
Uh,
looked
yeah, no,
rather
we
real.
at the beginning of Scalper, there's a
Yeah,
scene where the killer sticks a hunting knife
a hunting
into
knife. Yeah,
in someone's
right up.
rectum, in someone's rectum, and I would never hand a real knife to an actor on set
Well, no,
or a
yeah,
real
but
weapon, and so I created a fake weapon, and
right.
I think I just used some of the dirt that was there on set with slime and water, and I made
Sure.
it. Yeah, I made it like a shit smear
It, it,
on the knife for it. Yeah. So, but anyhow, yeah,
yeah,
that was good stuff.
yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, it was effective. It had the effect it needed.
Mm.
So, and yeah, and then you worked on That's a Wrap as well. How much of work were you key on that as well?
I was the key effects artist on
Oh,
that film as well.
okay,
Yeah,
so the
yeah,
one infamous kill in there, I'm not going to spoil it because people have to see it to believe it. But the mold, do you have a ready-made mold for that type of
yeah.
body part, or?
Yeah, no, I actually
Oh,
sculpted
you
that piece
did?
for the film. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have to say that I don't really consider that film a horror film.
Sure. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
more of a comedy,
right.
and but sometimes when it's a comedy like that, even though it's a comedy, I like to try to make things absolutely realistic.
Sure.
And sometimes maybe it's not as important to the production, but I always want to make sure it doesn't matter what the quality of the production is, that my
Sure.
work has to be of absolute superior, and
Hmm.
still needs to look professional. But like for instance, in a number film I work on with Chad, he's always very attuned to the idea that Joe wants to make sure that his work looks like emotion, like a
Right. Yeah.
try to make it look like a real motion picture,
Sure.
and so he gives me creative liberty to make sure that when I'm on set, I execute that stuff, and I highly respect him for that. Working with him, I've worked with a director named Eric Mathis
Hmm.
in Nevada. He's also very good at like basically delegating authority to a professional
Sure.
department, as opposed to one of these directors that comes in and believes that you're basically their gardener that they've hired.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible way to think about it, but it happens a lot. And
Mhm.
but these are directors that they're their own worst enemy, and they sabotage their films. I mean, that's just the
Yeah.
way it goes down. But James Balsamo was also an amazing director to work
Sure.
for. He
Hmm.
knows how to delegate authority to me to do really creative things. If I get sometimes if I give the director what they ask for, what they want, they're
Yeah.
missing out. They have no idea what
Sure. What you can do. Yeah.
yeah, what you can do.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I've worked
James.
with, worked with a lot of great directors over the years. Matthew Vanaha is also an upcoming director that I enjoy working with because he also knows how to delegate authority and this sort of thing. Yeah,
Well,
there's been
James,
many.
it like cranks it out like water. He just cranks out films like continuous. He's always making like three films at once. James Balsamo, it boggles my mind how he's always cranking something out.
I just worked
Uh,
with an amazing producer. His name is Chris Black on
mhm.
a movie titled Only 7 Days, and it's the word's out. It's a new werewolf film, and
Ooh.
I worked with Chris back in I want to say 2004, 2003, 2004 on a movie that I directed titled The Jackhammer Massacre,
Ah.
and now
Mhm.
Chris hired me to do special effects for one of his films, and it was he hired me to make this amazing werewolf, probably one of the best creatures I've made in my entire career. And I'm super grateful for that. And they did a really good job of showcasing some amazing shots of the monster in the film.
Well, that's always good. Like you said, when you have a director who recognizes the craft that you're doing and shoots it properly so you can see the artistry, because sometimes, yeah, you get it to where, oh, you see certain shots, and then it's not until like a behind the scenes footage or a promo still that you're like, oh, that's what it looked like. That looks fantastic.
Yeah, Yeah, I normally like to take a picture of the special effect from the
Mhm.
angle I think is the most appropriate to photograph it
Sure.
from.
Hmm.
And not always does the director agree with me, but maybe they're looking at it from a different point of view.
Sure.
And I have to respect that. It's their film. But ultimately, I know the most realistic angle to photograph it from. And I designed the effect with that in mind.
Hmm.
Like for instance, in one film I directed or one film that I worked on the special effects for, I created a special effect where a man gets his arms cut off.
Hmm.
And in the script, the man is kneeling and he has his when his arms are cut off here at the
Right.
in the middle
Right.
right here.
Hmm.
That way the blood could then squirt out and then pour down the flesh here and you could see it,
Hmm.
right? It'd be great. Can you imagine we would do
Oh yeah.
cut off like that with the arm blood squirting out? When I got to the movie set, the director decided he didn't want the guy on his knees with his arms up like this. He wanted to be laying on his back, and he wanted the
Oh,
arms to be up, so the blood didn't would
wouldn't
then
flow
not
out. Yeah.
we wouldn't run down the arm. It would just squirt and go over the guy's head. And so I insisted that he shoot it correctly the way that it was designed, but nope, he
Sure.
got his way. And then when it was done, he looked at me and said, "I guess I must not have explained myself correctly."
Oh, gee.
I was like, This is how this is how bad movies are made.
Sure.
This is
Sure.
this is how bad movies are made.
Hmm.
You got exactly what you wanted,
Hmm.
and you're now pointing the finger at me that I did something wrong. And of course, that was the end of my professional relationship with that person.
Sure. Sure.
He was a nightmare to work with for the rest of the time on set.
Yeah.
And more will be revealed of who that is, but it was like, I mean, I sent the man videos of what
Hmm.
it was going to look like. We
Hmm.
did tests using water so he could see,
Sure.
and then like, yeah. So there you go.
And then changed it
He
because they
changed it at
didn't.
the last second and then said, "Oh, I guess I must not have explained to you correctly what I wanted." That's what he said in front of everybody, in front of everyone.
Makes you wonder if he ever actually looked at the stuff you sent him, you know?
Well, yeah, that too, yeah, that too. And I mean, truth be told, it was only his second movie he had ever directed, but
Mm.
still, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, those challenges, I think people don't realize that effects artists, they run into that. You're doing more than just, oh, here's just a fake, foot, here's just a
yeah.
fake
That's
whatever.
sometimes yeah, I'll
Yeah.
make something and then I'll
Mhm.
bring it to set and I'll put it there on set, and they'll be like they think it's like a toy that they got from from Toy Mart or whatever, and then now
Sure.
they get to they go play with, oh
Mhm.
sure, go ahead, play with it all you want, and then they bring it back and they're like, oh, it didn't work, and I'm like, what do you mean it didn't work? What do you mean it
So,
didn't work?
so
They're like, look, the paint's coming off right here. What did you like run it on the highway before you brought it back to this kind of thing? They think it's some sort of like Mattel toy that's been
sure.
kid tested and mother approved for like a year. No, you know, they have no idea.
They have no idea, but it's good that you do have indie directors out there who do understand it.
Yes.
And I think that comes across on, in their films and that.
Mm.
And as I mentioned, wear many hats. You've directed films yourself. You did the Terror Toons films. If you don't mind me asking, I have to set the Wayback Machine. I looked at one of your films around the time it came out to video. It was Summer of Massacre. And as
Can I
big
just,
of
can I just say, if to the audience, the people don't know this, but The Summer of Massacre was the most pirated film on YouTube for 2 months in a row. We could
I
not get it down off YouTube.
I had a friend who had a copy of this DVD, so I watched it legitimately. I
Oh,
I did
okay,
not I
okay.
did not watch it pirate wise. I watched it legit. My friend had the DVD, and so I watched it. And you're I loved your practical effects, but you used a lot of CGI in there as well, which, in all honesty, took a little bit away from me because I'm like, there's great practical effects in here, but you have all the CGI overlays in that. What goes into the decision for that? Is it just budget, time, what you want to do? Because I was wondering that because there was the great practical effects, but then I was
Yeah.
distracted by the CGI.
Yeah, when that film was made, I was actually going to school to learn After Effects and learn CGI.
Oh, okay,
So, and
sure.
then of course we said that movie has the Guinness Book of World Record for the highest body count in a
Hmm.
slasher movie. So it took it took a lot of trial and error to just to
Sure.
get that film done. And I don't know if you've ever made a film before,
I've been
but
involved in a few. I have been
okay.
involved in a few,
So, but
yes.
when you put a little CGI into your film, it's sometimes it becomes almost like a drug. You can like you want to
Sure.
start pouring it on more and more. But ultimately, we were able to accomplish the body count
Mhm.
because of we got to use a lot of digital and like I said, I actually was going to school while we were shooting that film and putting it together.
Sure.
And so,
Sure.
a lot of it is some of the stuff in that film was actually school projects,
Oh,
like stuff I
okay.
was doing in
Sure.
school, in class, and I
Hmm.
was learning how to do it. And so it was kind of one big science experiment. And there are things about it that I wish I would have done differently. But,
Sure.
when I'm doing, I literally
You were
learned
in
how to use,
school. Yeah, you were
yeah,
in school
it was,
learning it. So
yeah,
yeah,
learn how
that hindsight, right? One of
so you'll
those you
be.
do a remastered of Summer of Massacre.
Well, in actuality, we are going to be remastering the film this year,
Oh, are you
and
really?
yeah, and I've been working in digital effects for 12 years,
Sure,
so I'm
sure,
going to go back and
sure.
do everything I ever intended to do and really finesse the whole thing and put it out because I think the movie itself I think is a great film, but the I want to use the word the finessed digital does take
Mhm.
away from the story. And
Right.
you're absolutely correct. I agree 100%. I want to go back and go back and fix
It-
that. Yeah. Change
it's
that.
that it's not often the critic gets to meet the filmmaker. So
No,
I
no, no.
just,
I agree.
that.
It's like one of the films I'm most proud of, but yet it's one of the films I don't hand someone to watch the first time of my work.
Sure,
And
sure.
so I
Hmm.
agree with you 100%. And
Yeah.
I do want to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
and now that you've explained that it puts it in more context. And when
Mm.
I first saw it, I was just getting into watching indie films. So and I'm a little older and am more experienced now, so it took me aback a bit. But now that you mention it, now I can see how that played out. And I have to ask, what did they classify as a body count? Was it just bodies on screen or was it actual kills? I was kind of
Yeah.
curious. I've
Yeah.
always wondered that what they
Yeah.
considered a body for the body count.
Well, you had to have the person's face. The person's
Okay.
face had to be in it.
Okay.
And it had to be, person's face who was dead on camera.
Sure, sure.
Basically. So
Okay.
if you had the person's face on camera
Hmm.
and they were dead or suffering and dead,
Hmm.
then that
That,
was a
that
kill.
counted that
That was
counted
a
as a
kill.
kill. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that again, that puts that film in a bunch of perspective. And that's why I love talking to filmmakers about their films and
Uh,
things that might not have, fallen quite right with me when I watched it because
and you have to realize that that movie was made by two people, basically.
right, sure.
Myself and
Hmm.
my husband, Stephen Escobar. And so and there was my friend Schroeder who also helped with
Sure.
casting and helped us on
Hmm.
set. But yeah, it was a real challenge making that film because we set out to set a Guinness Book of World Record with it. And so not everybody in the cast, we didn't want anybody to know what we were doing
Oh,
because
sure.
we wanted
Hmm.
to keep it secret. So not everybody in the cast, no one had a copy of the full script, this sort of thing. And
Sure.
we shot it on weekends over a
Hmm.
course of a year. And like I said, I was actually going to school during that time,
Yeah.
learning visual effects as we were producing the film and shooting the film,
I
which
I
really was a challenge.
I
Because
really go ahead.
because as I learned how to like make
Mhm.
shoot stuff,
Sure.
I didn't at the time I was learning VFX, I didn't realize that there's also a science behind shooting it in order to acquire the information you
Oh,
needed to
sure.
then put it into the
Mhm.
computer. See,
Right. Yeah.
people think, oh, I know how to do CGI now, but there's also a science behind gathering the
Hmm.
information to then put the CGI on. And I didn't realize that as we were shooting the film. If I would have known more, maybe I would have shot it differently. This sort
Sure.
of thing.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, but that's great that you're looking back and you want to reapproach it. So I loved the concept of the stories in Summer Massacre. I loved all the stories themselves and a lot of the stuff that you were doing in it. And like I said, the practical stuff I really dug as well. And the fact that you get to go back to it. Now I'm excited to see that. I want to see what you could do, 12 years later with it
yeah.
because
I plan on cleaning up the digital, but I plan on going back and not putting so much digital over the
Oh,
practical.
sure,
Because you know, now like 12 years later when I look at my work and I'm like, that's perfect. I didn't need to put, you know, extra blood here. I didn't need to do that. It
sure.
was fine the way it was, you know.
Mhm.
So, and also we're going to beat our Guinness Book of World Record. We're actually going to add even more deaths to it.
Oh,
I didn't
nice.
realize. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. That's exciting. Now, were you married at the time when you made that, or were you just seeing each other? If you don't
Oh,
mind me
well,
asking.
absolutely. No, Stephen and I have been together for 26 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
we got married.
Congratulations.
We're coming up on 2 years. We'll have two years married in J July, July the
Oh,
19th. Yeah, and so, but yeah, you know, we you know we basically have the same passion and dreams
sure.
when it comes to pursuing
Hmm.
a career in film and television, and yeah, you know, we I guess we've been together for. Let me see, about 14 years. Yeah, for 13, 14 years when we made that film. Yeah.
Wow. Being together that long and you're making the film together, I imagine it's a double-edged sword. One hand, you know each other and you know how to work with one another, but at the same time, were you able to leave any conflicts at work or like
Yeah.
at film there, or did it kind of come home and you're sitting there having breakfast and you go, you know, that one shot, it just didn't work.
Yeah, I don't know if you're, you know, as an artist, I don't know, maybe you can relate to this. I don't know, maybe it's just an artist, but you know, my mind, you know, 12 years ago is not the same mind that I have
Oh yeah,
today.
absolutely, yeah.
So when
Mhm.
I look back at my work and I sometimes I'll turn to Steve and I'll say, why didn't you like say something? Like, why didn't you say this doesn't work, Joe? Or, you know, maybe not so much there, or, you know, this kind of thing, not so much CGI, whatever.
Sure.
And then he would say to me, I really couldn't talk to you. I really couldn't explain, you know.
Sure, sure.
And
But
I
now,
understand.
but now, they no problems given the opinion
Yeah.
already.
Well, no, I'm just
Yeah.
I think it was more that I was more
Oh, you're more.
I'm more
Mhm.
open to the idea of
Sure.
collaborating
Mhm.
when it came to that. But you know, I really would have liked, like a studio film, there's always like a team of people that look at
Right.
this thing and
Mhm.
say, no, this isn't work. No, this
Mhm.
isn't comfortable. How can we make this more commercial? How can we make this more mainstream? How do we make this so it looks more marketable? And
Mhm.
that's why it takes a, you know, you know, a team of people to
Sure.
make a big studio film. And but when you're working with two people who are, you know,
Mhm.
married, and you have one that's doing this portion and one that's doing
Sure.
that portion, it can be a challenge. And
Sure.
so yeah,
Yeah.
and now that I've had all this feedback over the past 12
Yeah.
years on the film,
Mhm.
and I agree, I absolutely agree with it. And you know why? Because I think ultimately people understand we were trying to do something that was, one, truly original, and two,
Sure.
very challenging. And
Mhm.
so I've gotten some really good
Mhm.
constructive feedback, just like yours today.
Yeah, and again, most there's a lot of it that I did enjoy on it. And I agree. I've been, I guess, on YouTube reviewing stuff for this is going to be my 17th year now doing this. And I looked back 12 years ago, or 11 years ago when I first reviewed your film, I was just looking at indie films, and I looked some of my other reviews of independent films, and I look back at it going, man, I was a little bit too harsh, because I have an understanding now. I've been
Yeah.
involved in a
Yes.
project.
Yeah.
I've been on set. I was a script supervisor on an anthology film with a person who became my really good friend after doing an indie horror fest. Derek Carey. We did Hole in the Wall, this anthology, really extreme horror, and I got to experience what it was like being on an indie film set, and I loved it even though it was 13 hours in a smelly barn where we're sitting there. I remember this. You'd probably appreciate this if you don't mind me sharing. We're sitting there and for like an hour trying to get this hammer to hit the head properly to get the blood to show up
Yeah. Yeah.
properly. It's like midnight and you're just like, and we're hitting it and we finally got the shot. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that the amount of work that you do for indie films, because you're wearing so many hats, they're long hours, and you're doing it really because you love it, right? Because I not met many indie filmmakers who are in it saying, "Oh no, I'm gonna make tons of money on this film," you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, I
Mm.
hear you and I get you, It's good to hear that you've worked on a film, you've made a film, and you have the compassion and understanding that some filmmakers put into their films. We're actually trying to make entertainment. There's two types of filmmakers. There's those that are trying to make entertainment, and you
Right.
can genuinely see what they're trying to do when you watch their films.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the filmmaker who's making films to be famous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's a big difference. There's a huge difference. Filmmakers who are making movies to be famous normally make films that are challenging to watch or
Mm-hmm.
boring without substance, and it shows.
It,
And the only crime a movie can commit is being boring, right? And
yeah.
I don't. And even though my films can look like they have a lot of technical flaws or they look like they're low budget, the one thing my movies are not is boring.
No, no, they're visually entertaining, which I think, is important for me. I always tell someone, I've talked to some of my critic friends who are a little bit more like, oh, how could you love that movie? I'm like, if it wins me over visually, if I'm entertained visually,
Yeah.
you've won half the battle right there. Because if nothing else, I can come away from, movies a visual medium, as obviously know. And it's just, if you win me over visually, it's watchable. Okay, I was entertained, even if maybe the dialogue was off or maybe the audio was off. The story's there and visually, I just was like, wow, that looks amazing. Or that looks totally grotesque. You won me over, which you've done both. I can fully admit
Oh.
you've done both. Looking at your effects, some of them I was just like, wow, okay.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
You-
Yeah, yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. And so, Joe, what do you got? You mentioned Mutilator 2. We can't give too much details, but I'm excited. I saw some of the photos and I really want to see whatever that scene is with the girl
Yeah.
tied to the barnacle pole. I'm
Oh,
like,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
oh, I can't wait. But,
Well, most people don't realize this, but I worked for almost 4 months on that film before we shot it.
mhm,
Actors come in, they're on set for maybe one day, maybe three
sure.
days, maybe
Hmm.
maybe even 12 days, or whatever.
Hmm.
But most people don't realize I've literally worked on the film for 4 months before we began, and plus all my time on set. So I documented everything.
Oh, nice.
I have an amazing body of work from that
Mhm.
film that I can't wait to show everyone. And I'm sure the director is very challenged to allow me to show all that stuff. I'll just put it that way. Anyhow, but there's a lot of really cool detailed stuff I'm going to
Sure.
show everybody, and they can really see the work that I put into the film. And but well, ultimately, what were we talking? Wait, what was the question again?
No, well, I was just what you had coming up. I know. I think
Yeah,
the
Emulator 2. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And then we have a movie called Appetite for Sin, where I
Okay.
started my acting career 4 years ago, and I
Okay.
played lead character in a movie. It's a vampire film directed by Matthew Vanaha. I, of course, have right now there's Pig Killer, Scalper, and then coming up is going to be a movie titled Unspeakable Beyond the Wall of Sleep, which is another
Ooh,
Lovecraftian horror film directed by Chad Farron, and that's coming out real soon. But right now, you can go to www.terrortunes.tv. We just released Terrortunes 4. It took us most people don't realize this, but we made the original Terrortunes. We shot it in 3 days
sure.
for $2,300.
Wow.
The entire movie
Nice.
for $2,300,
Sure.
and it was released in every Blockbuster in America. There were 8 copies in every
Hmm.
store,
I remember.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
I remember seeing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was like sitting on the shelf, like right there next to Pirates of the Caribbean, and the magic of that film was we made the first movie in 3 days, we made the sequel in 7 days,
Mm.
and then it took us almost 10 years to make the third one. And then and,
Yeah.
and then it took us
Sure.
also almost another 10 years to make the fourth one. About 9 years. And those films are real labor of love. We pour our heart and soul into those films. But if you like Adult Swim, the TV
Mhm.
programming,
Oh yeah.
you will love Terrortunes 3 and
Hmm.
4. Or the Terrortunes
Nice.
franchise. You will love the Terrortunes franchise because that's kind of basically what they are, and
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun. They're
part part
definitely they're
part
definitely
four.
entertaining.
That part four is probably my favorite, only because we finally got enough of a budget to do the look and the feel that I wanted. I do love part one, of course. It's the most
Sure.
known in the characters and whatnot. But with the new technology and cameras and CGI, the fourth one, it looks and
It-
sounds like my favorite. Yeah.
Did you get Brink for the fourth one?
Brink is also
Brink's
now.
in there? Yeah.
Yeah, Brink actually wrote, starred in, and directed a portion of Terror Tunes 4.
Oh, nice.
It's actually her directorial debut. It's a portion of it was called Personal Demons. Yeah, the fourth one is an anthology and it has four stories in it. And I put Brink in every one of my films. I've known Brink for
She's awesome.
yeah, I've known Brink since I was, I believe, 15 years old.
Oh,
I met her.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I won a national special effects makeup contest when I was 15 years old. And you know who Forrest J. Ackerman is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know
Yeah,
Ackerman.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Forrest J. Ackerman had a magazine called Monsterland
Yep.
magazine, which was kind of the follow-up to Famous Monsters of Filmland. And Brink was going to be the kind of like the mascot of the
Mhm.
magazine. She played a character called Evola, and that's I met her in a photo shoot, and we became
Nice.
close friends. And she lives like literally less than a mile from me here in the valley. So
Yeah.
yeah, I consider her family, and I will always work with her. She just brings a special magic to every movie set she's on.
Yeah, I met her in person last year. Well, oh, now it's a little over a year ago at Twisted Dreams Film Fest in Milwaukee here. I got a chance to meet her, and I got one of her lost films as
Which
well.
one?
I forgot the name of it. It was here by my desk. I think I put it on my shelf, but I got her to sign it. It's like a giallo type film. Oh, it's
Okay, okay.
I forgot the name of it
I
offhand.
want
I
to
apologize, but
I want to say that Personal Demons is going to be playing selectively at a film festival soon here. That she's going to be presenting it, which, like I said, is her directorial debut, and she co-wrote it with another man and stars in it. And it's a great piece. I'm super proud to have it in Terror Tunes 4. But if you get a chance to check it out, you'll see this. She's a master at what she's done. She's done over almost 250 films, so she knows
yes,
what she's doing. She knows how to make a good, entertaining film. She knows what she's doing. Whenever she's on camera, she's just money. She looks amazing. She still is amazing. And yeah, I got to check out her movie. It's Personal Demons. Yeah.
Personal Demons. I'll keep an eye out for that. Yeah, I forgot the name offhand, but I've seen her in so many films that it's always great to see when she crops up on screen. So, uh, Joe, this has been amazing talking to you on this. I guess I got just a couple more questions. I was wondering, most influential special effects artist for it. Now, I know you said on your bucket list you got to talk to her, you got to work with Herschel Gordon Lewis and that. Is there another effects artist that you would find most influential?
Okay, well, there have been several. There have been several, and
Sure.
I need to mention them all. If I'm going to mention one,
Yeah.
of course, Tom Savini is going to be one. Tom used to, back in the day, you could call special effects artists at home on the phone because we didn't have computers. This kind of thing it
Sure.
wasn't the same. And I used to call Tom on his home phone up in
Mhm.
Pittsburgh. I was like 12 years old when I talked to Tom for the first time, and he took the time to talk with me and he took the
Yeah.
time to explain certain things if I asked him questions. So it was a very inspiring
Mhm.
artist, and he was willing to show me and not even show me, but to speak to me about things that were important to him, important
Mhm.
about the business that I took to heart and still apply to my world today. Then of course there's Rob Berman, who is the son of the famous Tom Berman,
Oh.
the Berman Studios. I don't know if you're familiar with that name,
Mhm.
but they worked on so many movies back in the day. They worked on Food of the Gods and that movie Prophecy about the big giant mutant bear. Let's see, the Beast Within.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Cat People and Natasha Kinski, and I mean the list goes on and on and on. Whisper to a Scream, the one movie with Vincent Price. It's an
Mhm.
anthology film. I think Jeff Burr directed that, didn't he?
I
No,
think so. And
maybe not Jeff Burr. Anyways, but either way, he's worked on so many. One Dark Night that was directed by oh now he's gonna kill me. The director of no, Friday the 13th Part 6. Uh,
oh
um,
ah
oh my gosh, he's gonna kill me for it. Hey, super nice man, super nice man, and anyways, the Berman Studios, Rob Berman has been a mentor to me for the past many years, several years, and he's just shown me and opened my world. As long as you remain teachable, you can do anything.
sure.
And that's kind of the way it's been. Tommy McLaughlin.
Mm.
Tommy McLaughlin. In fact, McLaughlin foam, he told me it was a foam latex that was invented. It was, I think, someone in his family invented that foam
Really?
latex. Yeah, so he was, it's all kind of like in the same universe here. But Tommy McLaughlin was the director of One Dark Night, and he worked
Mhm.
with the Berman Studios, making all these cadavers. And then, of course, there's a Brian Wade, which is a name that's highly respected in the industry. I had a chance to study with Brian, even it was just for a few days.
Sure.
And but this man allowed me to come to his studio, and we worked on a sculpture together. And I learned more from that man in just a few days than I've ever. I mean, just totally. But all these men. I mean,
Sure.
even working with Rob just for a few days, they just showed they are so talented at what they do that even if they're not trying to teach you something, if you're just watching them work, you are just learning so many things. And
Sure.
I learned things that I never dared dream of just by being there in the same room with them. And Don Lanning is also someone who's
Mm.
inspired me, and also a famous sculptor in the business. But these are the men that have shaped my career and shaped my skills. And I will always be forever indebted and grateful for the time that they spent with me.
Oh, that's a great list. Yeah. I'm familiar with the works of most of those, and if I don't recognize the name, I've probably seen a film that they've done.
Oh
So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like Brian's worked on like
sure.
Aquaman, and
Oh yeah.
Don
Yeah.
worked on the new it was a Hellboy film, and I
Hellboy,
mean
sure.
all these movies. I mean, they work on them all. So
Hmm.
these are like masters of their craft. Yeah,
See, it is funny. I talked to Patrick Reed Johnson a number of years ago about his film Spaced Invaders, and it's interesting to hear you talk about it as well. How these special effects guys work on big, huge films, but then they also work on these small films because they just love doing their craft. He
yeah,
talked about how he had guys who would be working at ILM during the day doing big budget films come across the bridge to his little warehouse where he was shooting a small sci-fi film, and they'd be working till the wee hours of the morning because they loved doing their craft. And
yeah.
that comes across, and I think it comes across with you as well, your passion for this. It really shows in your work. And what would be your advice then? Say someone out there is inspired by
Yeah.
your work, or those works of other special effects artists as well. What would you suggest to them to get into it, to
Yeah.
start? Because
Yeah.
your craft is a little bit tougher than acting, because you got to learn kind of chemistry and other things as well.
Mm. That's a great question. I was just asked that question earlier today on
Mm.
another podcast,
Ah,
and I'm like, I wonder if I gave them enough information. Truth be told, the advice they asked me, what advice would you give your younger self?
sure.
And the advice I give my younger self is start now.
Hmm.
Don't wait, not even one more minute. It's important now. It's important to be serious about it right now, because I feel, even though I'm like I've literally been doing this for 42 years. It's 2024, and I made my first rubber mask when I was 12 years old, and that was 1982. That's
Sure.
42 years ago,
Hmm.
and I just feel like now I have enough skill and talent to be able to stand with my head and my head held high.
Hmm.
There's a lot of young people out there. They're like in their late 20s and early 30s, and they think their shit doesn't stink. And the truth, they're gonna make. They have a lot of
Right.
learning to they're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way. But this game of doing special effects and working in the business is something that it's a educational variety
Mhm.
process. You remain teachable, start now, get serious about it right now, and always tell yourself that everything's going to be okay. That's what I would have told myself. Everything's going to be okay. Just keep going. Everything's going to be okay. And also, you can't hit a home run every time. You just
Right.
can't. It's not possible, you know. And at least if you're working by yourself,
Right.
it's great to work with a team of people, and listen to the director, become teachable, listen to the advice of the people around you. People are genuinely not trying to kill you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
people,
They're not
there are
trying,
some.
they're not deliberately trying to
Yeah,
bring you
yeah,
down
yeah,
most of the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean, I would say most people are. There's always, someone to look out for. There's always a bad apple in the bunch. But that goes for everybody, right? I'm sure you've experienced that. That
Yeah.
saying, "I'm not. I don't. I'm not. I don't regret the things I did wrong. I regret the right things I did for the wrong people."
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
that's a good way to put it. You know, and I always find that mistakes in that are a good way to learn. I mean, we're humans. It's not high school. If you make a mistake, you learn from it and then just try not to make it next time.
Yeah.
And as an artist, for you, you know, you're always evolving. I mean, for me, you know, for the projects I work on, I've do them completely different than I did it 17 years ago, you know.
Absolutely. Sure. I
But
agree. Yeah.
but I'm always looking to learn, and you're right. That's great advice is always evolve, listen, and take the good, and you know, throw away the bad or what you might not like. But I think if you're always open, you can really improve your art and create great things
Yes.
like pig masks that really look like they're from a pig that will disturb your audience. So,
Excellent. Nice. Thank you. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
thank you, Joe, and everybody. Check out his stuff. Just social medias. Just search for Joe Castro or.
Yeah, I'm an easy find.
Mhm.
Joe, on Instagram, I'm Joe underscore Castro underscore director. And then on Facebook, I'm facebook.com/Joe.Castro. But more importantly, send me a message if you send me a friend request, say hello. Let's make a movie. And if you want to check out our franchise, once again, that's terrortunes.tv. Yeah.
Awesome. And we'll put links into the body description and all that fun stuff down below. So thank you, Joe. This has been a pleasure. Hope everyone here has enjoyed this. And check out a film. Check out a good film, any one of his. Just go to IMDb, check out the list. I'm sure you'll find something that will scare you, grotesque you, and make you smile. So.